Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to your Monday Night Raw post-show. And man, there is a lot to talk about with last night's episode. Honestly, it probably wasn't the best Raw, to be honest with you. Certain things did happen that I did like, certain things that I did not like. Certain superstars or superstar decided to return back to work after she has been on a hiatus for quite some time. So we're going to talk about all this and how I feel about Monday Night Raw in today's episode. So starting off the night, man, we got Becky Lynch coming out to the ring. Meanwhile, usually when they start Monday Night Raw, you have the little backstage, I would say video packages, but the entrances of the superstars. We see CM Punk showing up finally with AJ Lee. But we also see Becky Lynch also seeing AJ Lee. This obviously pissed off Becky Lynch and got Becky Lynch irate. But we start the night with Becky Lynch. She comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. Becky says that there's only so much disrespect that she can take. After this, Becky's quickly interrupted by none other than AJ Lee. Becky then asks AJ, "What are you doing here?" AJ then says that she's here to support Maxine and Maxine Dupri's match later on in the night against Natty. Becky says that AJ Lee is ruining her life. AJ said that she hasn't done anything to Becky Lynch besides her match against Becky at WrestlePalooza, Survivor Series, and also costing Becky Lynch her Intercontinental title. Becky then says she wants to know what is it going to take to have AJ Lee leave her alone or leave Monday Night Raw. Becky then mentions the Elimination Chamber, which is taking place at the end of the month in Chicago, Illinois. AJ then says a match with Becky would have to be worth it, maybe putting on the Intercontinental Championship on the line. AJ says that if she beats Becky, she should be number one contender for the Women's Intercontinental title. After this, Becky Lynch then says fine. She kind of caves in to AJ Lee. And it looks like we're going to get Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee at Elimination Chamber for the Women's Intercontinental title. Now, a couple things about this, which I'll talk more about this at the end of the show. But, number one, it's great to finally see AJ Lee back in the realm of WWE. She has been off the scene for quite some time. She hasn't really had a match at all on Monday Night Raw. She had a match, obviously, the mixed tag team matchup, which I mentioned earlier at WrestlePalooza, where she was teaming up with CM Punk to take on Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch at WrestlePalooza. She was also a part of Survivor Series as well. And she was, I wouldn't say a part of it, but she also was there when Maxine won the Women's Intercontinental title. But we haven't really seen AJ Lee have a match on Monday Night Raw. And I made comments about AJ Lee for the past couple weeks when it pertains to her presence on Monday Night Raw, or in WWE for that matter. She has a very limited part-time schedule, very limited, and very selective dates that she's willing to work. With that being said, honestly, a lot of people have had gripes about AJ Lee. A lot of people were at least anticipating or expecting to see AJ Lee at the Royal Rumble. That did not happen. Kind of setting up a storyline here between Becky and AJ going into WrestleMania this year, but that did not happen. So we see AJ Lee show up last night, finally showing up for work, and we have a little confrontation here between AJ Lee and Becky Lynch, which ultimately sets up a match between Becky and AJ Lee for the Women's Intercontinental title at Elimination Chamber in Chicago, Illinois. Obviously, AJ Lee is going to get a huge ovation from that crowd, being that she is, or living at least, in Chicago, Illinois. CM Punk is from the Chicago area as well, so obviously she's going to get a huge ovation from the Chicago crowd, which is one of the best wrestling cities in the entire country. But to be honest with you, man, I was kind of torn on this, to be honest with you. Number one, how much build are we going to get for this Becky Lynch and AJ Lee match, knowing that Elimination Chamber is roughly in about 2 weeks, I think February 28th. So, number one, how much build are we going to get here between Becky Lynch and AJ Lee, which there could have been a little bit more build towards this matchup if AJ Lee actually showed up at the Royal Rumble. I feel like that was more of a personal choice from AJ Lee not to show up at this year's Rumble, to be honest. But again, the biggest question is how much build are we going to get here between AJ Lee and Becky Lynch going into this matchup at Elimination Chamber? I know that she is scheduled, I believe, for next week's Monday Night Raw, if I'm not mistaken. So we get a little bit more back and forth here between AJ Lee and Becky Lynch. But I'll also say this. The back and forth promo here between AJ Lee and Becky Lynch, man, it was nauseating, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's something where and it's both sides of the fence here. It's not just AJ Lee. Becky Lynch cutting that promo in the ring last night just felt lackluster. It felt like they were trying to play it safe. AJ Lee, I felt like, I don't know if this is just her persona that she's trying to portray herself on television. It's just, it gives off this lackadaisical, really not giving a shit vibe, and not really being enthusiastic about wanting to have these matches or at least be on Monday Night Raw. And like I said, yeah, we might see AJ Lee next week. Obviously, we're going to see AJ Lee and Becky Lynch at the Elimination Chamber. But again, after this, are we not going to see AJ Lee again until 2 weeks going into WrestleMania around April? So she's on a very limited part-time schedule. Very limited. And again, a lot of people have, vented their frustrations with AJ Lee due to the fact that she has signed a contract with WWE, but has seemingly not really been a part of Monday Night Raw for quite some time. Obviously, she showed up for Maxine Dupri's match against Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental title, and then she shows up tonight, but she also has not had a singles match at all since her return. She's been teaming up with CM Punk. She showed up to help Maxine. She was a part of the Women's Survivor Series matchup. So AJ Lee, since she has returned back to WWE, has yet to have a singles match. This will be her first singles match to date since she's been back in the confines of WWE on Monday Night Raw. So we're going to see how this plays out. Could I see AJ Lee possibly beating Becky Lynch? I don't know. And the reason why I don't know if she's actually going to beat Becky is that they might be, pushing this further back to have Becky Lynch and AJ Lee at WrestleMania, where maybe AJ Lee at that time does go over and become Women's Intercontinental Champion. If that's the case, hopefully we do. If she does beat Becky for the Women's Intercontinental title, we do see AJ Lee more on Monday Night Raw than we have been for the past few months. Moving on from that, though, we go into our first official match of the night. It is the Usos defending the World Tag Team titles against the Alpha Academy, Otis and Tozawa. I thought it was a decent match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams with Otis and Tozawa keeping the pace of the match. Tozawa hits a Hurricane Rana followed by an Enziguri. Otis then hits a power slam on Jimmy Uso in the middle of the ring. The Usos then get up, try to get some offense in by hitting a super kick on Otis. Tozawa then hits a senton off the top rope for a near fall. The Usos then both hit a spear on Otis, followed by the Usos hitting the 1D on Otis in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are the Usos. The Usos end up retaining the World Tag Team titles. After this, the Usos were interviewed, I believe, by Byron Saxton, which he asked the Usos what is next for the Usos. Jay then gives praise to Otis and Tozawa, but Jimmy then says that he needs Jay to qualify for the Elimination Chamber and have Jay Uso go back to being main event Uso. So, here's the thing, bro. Number one, this whole thing with the Usos being the World Tag Team Champions, I'm not against it. I'm not. I think it was better for Jay, especially Jimmy, to have the Usos reunite and have them, I guess, seemingly back on the main event scene, if you want to call it that. The issue that I have with this, though, is that the tag team side of things on Monday Night Raw is lacking depth on that roster, as far as having competitive tag teams to go up against the Usos, where the Usos can actually have competitive matches against other tag teams on the Monday Night Raw roster. They got the New Day, you have Otis and Tozawa from Alpha Academy, you got maybe the Americanos, if you want to call them really a good tag team. You also have the War Raiders, which seemingly got their ass kicked last week by Obafemi, which I don't know where it puts the War Raiders at now. It's lacking depth. You also have the Creeds as well. They also returned here recently. I think 2 weeks ago they returned back to Monday Night Raw. There's not a lot of competitive tag teams right now on the roster for Monday Night Raw. So I don't know if this is going to be something where this is going to be a short-term title reign for the Usos in the aspects that maybe they're going to drop the titles to a certain tag team, maybe the Creeds, maybe the New Day, where we don't know really what's going to happen next with Jimmy if that does happen, but Jay Uso might go back to the main event scene, might be main event Jay Uso. I know Jimmy had made comments, which I mentioned a minute ago, that he really wants Jimmy really wants Jay to qualify for the Elimination Chamber and go back to being the main event Jay Uso. So it does seem as if Jay Uso will get a qualifying matchup in the Elimination Chamber, and I don't know where that leaves Jimmy. And that's the biggest question coming out of all this. Where does this leave Jimmy? Where does this leave the World Tag Team titles with the Usos, especially in a division that is lacking depth as far as having competitive tag teams to challenge the Usos for the World Tag Team titles? But I will also give credit where credit is due. I think Otis and Tozawa last night really impressed me as a tag team. I think it's an underutilized tag team with Otis and Tozawa. They gave the Usos a run for their money, and not for nothing, both Jimmy and Jay had a bunch of botches last night with the super kicks that they were landing during their match last night. So, I don't know. Obviously, they're trying to push this narrative, at least with Jimmy, pushing this narrative to get Jey Uso back in the main event scene and being a world champion once again. Am I against it? Not entirely. What I am against, though, is what does it do for Jimmy Uso if Jay then once again goes on his own and does his own thing? Where does this leave Jimmy Uso? Obviously, Jimmy probably will be taking some time off here relatively soon. Obviously, him and Naomi are starting a family, so he might be taking some significant time off, possibly, to be with Naomi, especially with them starting a family. So it might be something where maybe they do drop the World Tag Team titles, and then Jey Uso goes back to the main event scene once again. And I know Jey Uso has been hinting on the fact that he wants to go back and be the main event Jey Uso that he once was, trying to recapture the World Heavyweight Championship and be the guy that everybody is talking about when it pertains to Monday Night Raw. So we'll see how it plays out, man. But again, there really is lacking depth in the tag team division on Monday Night Raw. So it really does question the fact of where are the Usos really genuinely going next. But we'll see what happens. Moving on from that, we have Liv Morgan coming out to the ring with Dominic Mysterio. Before they say anything, Dominic then gives Liv Morgan some roses, pretty much, I guess, celebrating Valentine's Day a little bit early. Liv then praises Dominic as the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Liv says that she put Jade and Stephanie on notice. After this, Stephanie Vaquer comes out to the ring, which, by the way, Def Rebel completely ruined Stephanie Vaquer's entrance music, bro. It is absolutely trash. But she comes out to the ring. Stephanie says that Liv talks too much. Liv then is trying to figure out the conversation that Dominic and Stephanie are having. She doesn't understand what they are saying. After this, Stephanie then said that she hopes Liv picks her so she can beat her ass at WrestleMania. So it looks like Stephanie is also sending a message to Liv Morgan, hoping that Liv decides to choose Stephanie at WrestleMania. Now, I gave my thoughts on this as far as who I think Liv Morgan should pick going into WrestleMania. I think 100% it should be Stephanie Vaquer. Obviously a title that means a lot to Liv Morgan. I don't really see Liv Morgan versus Jade Cargill being a high-profile matchup. But again, when we're talking about Jade Cargill, it does really beg the question is who's going to be next for Jade going into this year's WrestleMania? Are they trying to save a spot for Bianca Belair, which we'll talk about here more at the end of the podcast because I got some more news about Bianca yesterday, which I want to share with you guys as well. But as far as Liv Morgan, to me, honestly, I think Liv Morgan should choose Stephanie Vaquer. I think it just makes 100% sense, to be honest with you. Obviously, Raquel Rodriguez, who's a part of the Judgment Day with Liv Morgan. Raquel has had her issues with Stephanie. Maybe Liv Morgan can beat Stephanie Vaquer possibly and bring back the women's world title back to the Judgment Day clubhouse. So we'll see how this plays out going into this year's WrestleMania. And moving on from that, we have an Elimination Chamber qualifier matchup. It is Lyra Valkyria taking on Ivy Nile versus Rhea Ripley. I thought the match itself was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Lyra, Ivy, and Rhea Ripley, with Rhea keeping the pace of the match. Ivy then hits a German suplex on Lyra and Rhea in the middle of the ring, followed by Lyra hitting a Hurricane Rana on the outside on Rhea Ripley. Lyra then hits a step-up enziguri, followed by Lyra hitting a Nightwing on Ivy Nile in the middle of the ring for a near fall that was broken up by Rhea Ripley. This allowed Rhea Ripley to hit a Riptide on Lyra Valkyria in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match. And moving on to the Women's Elimination Chamber matchup and also joining Tiffany Stratton is Rhea Ripley. Hats off to Rhea Ripley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a CM Punk interview with Michael Cole, but the interview was quickly... it doesn't even jump off, to be honest with you. Michael Cole was quickly interrupted by Finn Balor. Finn Balor comes out to the ring. He mocks CM Punk. Finn says that Punk is hurt. and that he says that Roman is not taking advantage of an injured CM Punk. Finn says that he's done being an afterthought. Finn then says that he wants Punk at the Elimination Chamber. Pierce comes out to the ring and once again tells Finn Balor no. After this, CM Punk is here. Punk then rushes to the ring, but Pierce tells Punk no, not like this. Punk says that Finn doesn't deserve a title shot, but instead he deserves an ass whooping. Finn then says not without the title. Punk says, how about tonight? I put the title on the line tonight in a match against Finn Balor. Pierce then tells Punk no, and that he's not going to jeopardize the WrestleMania match between Punk and Roman Reigns. Pierce then, after being forced by CM Punk, Pierce announces that it will be Punk versus Finn Balor at the Elimination Chamber for the World Heavyweight title. Punk then goes to Michael Cole and says, do you want to continue the interview? Cole asked a simple question. Why are you doing this? Why are you going to jeopardize your WrestleMania match with Roman Reigns? Punk then quickly says that he's not jeopardizing anything, but he's chasing glory. Punk says that he thinks Reigns hates the changes that CM Punk is making on Monday Night Raw. Now, a couple things about this. Number one, I'm really liking the progression here with Finn Balor. Finn Balor is refusing to sit aside and play second fiddle to anybody. And I think Liv Morgan kind of got into Finn Balor's mind, to be honest with you, and kind of wanted to see what Finn Balor can do. Can we see the old Finn Balor from the past? Maybe not necessarily the demon Finn Balor, but the Finn Balor that we all saw before at one time was Universal Champion for a very, very, very small stint in his career. Where is that Finn Balor? The same Finn Balor that CM Punk wanted in their matchup in Ireland, where CM Punk defended the World Heavyweight title against Finn Balor in his backyard. So Finn had that match with Punk, and Finn was unsuccessful in beating CM Punk in that matchup. Now Finn is pissed off. Finn wants to be the top guy. He wants to be one of the top guys on Monday Night Raw. And should he? Absolutely. Finn Balor should be one of those guys that should 100% be in the main event scene on Monday Night Raw. There's no reason why Finn Balor shouldn't be a part of the main event scene. My question, though, is how do we get there? Obviously, Finn Balor has this matchup now that's scheduled from Adam Pearce that will happen at Elimination Chamber between CM Punk and Finn Balor for the World Heavyweight title. Also, though, going into this matchup, my instant thought was, okay, we're going to have this match seemingly at Elimination Chamber right smack dab in CM Punk's backyard in Chicago, Illinois. Obviously, Punk is going to get a huge ovation from his hometown crowd. Do I see CM Punk losing to Finn Balor? No, I don't. Because the money match that is already made right now that's going to take place at WrestleMania is CM Punk defending the World Heavyweight title against Roman Reigns at this year's WrestleMania. So I don't see Finn beating CM Punk at Elimination Chamber. So my question now would be, if Finn is unsuccessful in beating CM Punk once again for the World Heavyweight title, then where does this leave Finn Balor? And how is this making a case for Finn Balor to be in the main event scene if he has now lost not once, but twice to the current World Heavyweight Champion in CM Punk? Where does this now leave Finn Balor if he does lose now twice, possibly to CM Punk at Elimination Chamber? So are they really trying to push Finn Balor? Or is this something where Finn Balor is going to be taking a back seat, seemingly once again, because he can't get past the hurdle of a CM Punk and the World Heavyweight title? So where does this leave Finn Balor? You know, a lot of people have been speculating that maybe Finn Balor might be ended up leaving the Judgment Day and kind of doing his own thing and going off on his own. Am I against it? No, I'm not. And to be honest with you, a lot of people can say, well, what would happen with the Judgment Day, or more or less what would happen to Finn Balor if he leaves the Judgment Day? Well, look what happened to Damian Priest. He got more of a significant push when he left the Judgment Day. Same thing with Rhea Ripley. When she was done with the whole thing with Dominic Mysterio and then she left the Judgment Day, it only intensified Rhea Ripley's career even more, to a point now where she is 100% a main event talent within the confines of WWE. So I don't understand how Finn Balor cannot also be in the conversation to be a main event star for WWE. And we're also talking about a guy that has not been Universal Champion in a long time. And it wasn't like he even had a title reign, because he had to relinquish the title due to injury. So I think Finn Balor is trying to restore his old glory that he once had. You know, we're talking about a guy that when he came into NXT, I mean, he made NXT what it was. The matches that he had with Kevin Owens, great matches. When he came over to the main roster and he introduced the Demon, if you will, to the main roster. It shook a lot of people up, and a lot of people got excited. So again, is this something where maybe he's trying to restore his own glory, but Finn Balor can't just get past the finish line? I feel like in some small, crazy ways, maybe it's a conspiracy theory that I have, but I look at Finn Balor having a lot of similarities to Sami Zayn, where Zayn is a main event guy, no doubt. But can Finn Balor or Sami Zayn win the big one? Become world champion? I mean, you look at Sami Zayn in the match that he just recently had with Drew McIntyre, where seemingly he can't get over that hurdle of Drew McIntyre, and seemingly every time that Zayn has a world title shot opportunity, Sami Zayn comes up short. And he's yet to be world champion. Something that Sami Zayn is continuously trying to get. It's like it's at the end of the tunnel, but he just can't get there. He comes up short. And Finn Balor, I feel like it's kind of possibly the same situation here with Finn. I don't see Finn Balor going into Chicago, Illinois, and CM Punk's hometown at Elimination Chamber and beating CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title, knowing that A, it's CM Punk's hometown. B, CM Punk already has a very anticipated high-profile matchup at WrestleMania where he will be defending the World Heavyweight title against the likes of Roman Reigns. I don't think WWE is going to jeopardize CM Punk dropping the World Heavyweight title to give it to Finn Balor when we already have a scheduled matchup here between CM Punk and Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight title. A match that Roman had requested due to the fact that Roman was successful in the Royal Rumble, which granted him an opportunity at the World Heavyweight title or the Universal Championship with Drew McIntyre. I just don't think they're going to jeopardize that quite yet. So we're going to see how this plays out with Finn Balor. I know they're really trying to push Finn, but again, I don't see Finn Balor beating CM Punk in Chicago at Elimination Chamber and becoming the new World Heavyweight Champion. I just don't see it. I just don't. Moving on from that, we get Natty versus Maxine Dupree. This is the first match under the Natty character, if you even want to call it a matchup. This was a glorified ass whooping from Natty to Maxine Dupree. Natty was pretty much beating the hell out of Maxine Dupree. They were on the outside, fighting on the announce table. Referee sounds for the bell. Match ultimately ends. But Natty then applies a sharpshooter on Maxine on the announce table. But all of a sudden, AJ Lee's music hits. She comes out to the ring to save Maxine Dupree. And AJ Lee then helps Maxine Dupree to the back. But AJ Lee is also attacked by Natty. So it looks like Natty has some unfinished business here with AJ Lee. Some interesting stuff there between Natty and AJ Lee. Moving on from that, we have a tag team matchup where it is the Los Americanos, Rayo and Bravo, taking on Javon Evans and a mystery partner. And that mystery partner is none other than the original Grande Americano. So we had Los Americanos taking on Javon Evans and the original Grande Americano. Number one, I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams with Javon Evans and the original Americano keeping the pace of the match. Evans then hits a stunner in the middle of the ring, followed by Evans hitting a Whisper in the Wind off the top rope as well. The original Grande Americano then hits multiple German suplexes in the middle of the ring, followed by Evans hitting a Pele kick in the middle of the ring. Grande Americano attacks the original Grande Americano. This allowed Evans to hit an OG cutter in midair. I believe it was on Bravo, if I'm not mistaken. This allowed original Grande Americano to hit a diving headbutt off the top rope, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Javon Evans and the original Grande Americano. After the match, though, Grande Americano attacks Javon Evans and the original Grande Americano. Moving on from that, though, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of Monday Night Raw. It is a Elimination Chamber qualifier matchup where you have Penta taking on LA Knight versus Austin Theory. The match itself, I thought, was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Penta, LA Knight, and Austin Theory, with LA Knight keeping the pace of the match. Penta hits a Hurricane Rana, followed by Theory hitting a Brainbuster in the middle of the ring. Penta then hits an Enziguri, but Knight hits an elbow drop off the top rope. Logan Paul and Bronson Reed are here. Reed then attacks LA Knight, followed by Reed hitting a tsunami on LA Knight. Pierce is here. Pierce looks pissed off. Pierce ends up kicking out Logan Paul and Bronson Reed. After this, Theory then hits a foot stomp for a near fall. Then out of nowhere, the masked person or masked assailant attacks Austin Theory ringside. Logan Paul then chases after the masked assailant. This allowed LA Knight to hit a BFT in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and moving on to the Elimination Chamber, is LA Knight. Hats off to LA Knight for getting the win in this matchup. A couple of things I quickly want to talk about with you guys when it pertains to Monday Night Raw before I get the hell up out of here. Number one, was it a good Monday Night Raw? I also apologize for the cough. I'm not really feeling too well, but I do apologize for that. Was Monday Night Raw a good show? No, it was not. I'm going to be honest, bro. I don't know what the hell was going on with the main roster. You know, I gave my gripes about Friday Night SmackDown, where it literally felt more than a 4 or 5 hour show rather than it being a 3 hour SmackDown, because it was just dreadful, bro. Monday Night Raw, was it a little bit better than SmackDown? Yes. In the aspect of storyline progression, we see the return of AJ Lee, which we'll talk about here in a minute. We get, some insight with Paul Heyman and Adam Pearce. Obviously, there's this back and forth banter here between Pearce and Paul Heyman. We also see the masked assailant once again show up on Monday Night Raw. He ends up attacking Austin Theory, which ultimately cost Theory his match to qualify for the Elimination Chamber. A couple things about this. I'm going to start off with this whole situation with the masked assailant, Paul Heyman, and the Vision. So, there was news that broke, and I made comments about this on my Friday Night SmackDown upload that I just recently did, but I want to go into more depth about this. There was news that broke that Braun Breaker sustained an injury. A lot of people were talking about it, about the spot that happened with the announce table, stating that he ruptured his hernia or required hernia surgery from some kind of incident with the announce table. That is true. Braun Breaker is going to be out with some significant time due to the fact that he had to have hernia surgery. This could also possibly not have Braun Breaker a part of this year's WrestleMania, which ultimately sucks, to be honest with you. I feel like Breaker, obviously the way things were shaping up, it looked like there was going to be Braun Breaker versus Seth Rollins at this year's WrestleMania, and that match needs to happen. There's some unfinished business there between Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins. That whole thing, bro, between Rollins and Breaker literally just went to shit. From Seth Rollins getting injured to him being off television, Braun Breaker not winning the Royal Rumble, and now, a week later, we get news that Breaker is going to require hernia surgery, and he's going to be out with some significant time and could possibly most likely miss this year's WrestleMania, which ultimately just sucks, man. The masked assailant, I know a lot of people were pointing towards Logan Paul. There was even rumors of Jake Paul being the person behind the mask. Nobody really knows who the hell it is until the person is revealed. Just like we all were playing back and forth on who the hell it was until Austin Theory revealed himself as the other masked assailant that we saw also get involved at Survivor Series. So we don't really genuinely know who the hell this person is. I can only predict that most likely it's probably going to be Seth Rollins. But the issue with that is, if it is Seth Rollins, and knowing that we saw the masked assailant show up last night and cost Austin Theory his Elimination Chamber matchup, or at least qualify for the Elimination Chamber, it does beg the question now, with the news coming out about Braun Breaker, is that going to be Seth Rollins revealed as this new masked assailant that we've been seeing for the past few weeks, most notably at the Royal Rumble and last night's Monday Night Raw. So, is it really going to be Seth Rollins, bro, or is this going to be another member added to the Vision that we don't know? Because right now, if it is Seth Rollins, not saying he doesn't have history with the Vision, but the history that Seth Rollins would, in my opinion, the history that he would have with the Vision, as far as there being a matchup, it would 100% be Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker after Breaker hit that devastating spear on Seth Rollins and beat the shit out of Seth Rollins before Rollins was ultimately written off TV with injury. So the match to make between the Vision and Seth Rollins would have to be Rollins versus Braun Breaker. With Breaker now having to have hernia surgery and most likely missing WrestleMania, where does this leave Seth Rollins if Rollins is in fact cleared to compete once again in the middle of the ring? So I feel like in some small way, and no fault of their own, WWE kind of backed themselves in the corner now with the situation with Braun Breaker. So how is this going to play out? We have WrestleMania coming up seemingly in 2 months in April. How is this going to play out? And everything, and I'll talk about this more about WrestleMania too. WrestleMania is not looking that good for a lot of reasons. But where does this leave Seth Rollins? Where does this leave Braun Breaker? You know what I mean? That's the $1 million question. We see the back and forth between Paul Heyman and Adam Pearce. I'm loving this back and forth between Pearce and Paul Heyman. Because Pearce is doing this shit now where it's like, you know what? I'm the general manager of Monday Night Raw. I don't give a damn what you got to think or what you say or who you think you are. I'm running the show here for Monday Night Raw. You know what I mean? So I'm loving this back and forth banter here between Paul Heyman and Adam Pearce, bro. And, you know, I think it's great for Monday Night Raw. Pearce is not messing around. He's trying to run a well-oiled machine by any means necessary, and he's doing a fantastic job with doing so. So I definitely think that's one interesting part about Monday Night Raw when we see Adam Pearce and Paul Heyman kind of have this back and forth banter for the past couple weeks on Monday Night Raw. So I think that's awesome as well. We see AJ Lee. This was another hot topic of last night. AJ Lee finally shows up to work. She shows up last night. She has this back and forth banter between herself and Becky Lynch. I'm going to be honest, bro. With all due respect to AJ Lee, it's great to have her back in WWE first and foremost. But she is on a very limited part-time schedule, bro. Very limited. And my concerns with this matchup with her and Becky is, number one, they could have built off this match at the Rumble, where AJ Lee could have showed up at the Rumble, caused a distraction for Becky Lynch, or eliminated Becky Lynch, would set up more of a storyline here between Becky and AJ Lee for a possible WrestleMania match coming down the pike in April for the Women's Intercontinental title. Instead, we're getting that match now at Elimination Chamber in Chicago, Illinois, where Becky will be defending the Women's Intercontinental Championship against AJ Lee. My issues with this is, number one, the build for this matchup. Are we going to get significant build going into this matchup at Elimination Chamber? I highly doubt it, to be honest with you. Two, even if we get this matchup, which we are getting this matchup at Elimination Chamber, is this going to be a one-and-done thing for AJ Lee, and we're not going to see AJ Lee until another 2 weeks leading up to WrestleMania? She is on a very limited part. I would love to see her contract, bro, because it is very, very limited part-time schedule, man. I mean, we're talking about somebody who hasn't had a goddamn match on Monday Night Raw, but seemingly gets a Women's Intercontinental title matchup when she hasn't even had a singles match to date since she's been back to Monday Night Raw. And the last time we saw AJ Lee compete in the middle of the ring was in November for Survivor Series. Well, bro, here it is now, February. And before Survivor Series, she didn't have a match until WrestlePalooza, where she was teaming up with CM Punk to take on the likes of Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. So my thing, bro, we're trying to run some shit back here between AJ Lee and Becky Lynch that seemingly took place in September of last year. Here we are now in February, where they want to try to run it back here between Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. I know we had Survivor Series. I get that. But I'm talking about a confrontation here between AJ Lee and Becky that was strong enough. We haven't seen that since WrestlePalooza. You know what I'm saying? So we're trying to run back a situation here between AJ Lee and Becky Lynch all the way back from September until now in February. You know what I mean? It's very selective dates, and we have not seen her have this will be her first singles match as being a part of the WWE roster. And her first match is for the Women's Intercontinental title. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really impressed with that. I wasn't really impressed with AJ Lee returning and automatically getting an automatic title shot, seemingly out of thin goddamn air. So, I have frustrations with that. It's great to see her back. But like I said, it's frustrating as all hell because it's hard to build any kind of match with somebody that has a part-time schedule like AJ Lee. I said the same thing about Roman Reigns and CM Punk and my worry of the build leading up to this year's WrestleMania. Now, I know Roman has some dates lined up to show up on Monday Night Raw to pretty much hype up this matchup with CM Punk that he's going to have at WrestleMania. Great. We need build. I mean, you guys, both Roman and CM Punk came out the gate red hot with this whole storyline here between Punk and Reigns at WrestleMania. They came out the gate red hot. How are we going to continue to do that? How are we going to keep pushing this narrative and pushing this storyline until we get to WrestleMania? That's my biggest gripe with that. What are we going to do, and what are the lengths that we're willing to go to get the fans intrigued and interested in this match between CM Punk and Roman Reigns? It's the same way I feel about Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. There's not going to be enough build here. She's on a very limited part-time schedule. She hasn't had a singles match at all since she has come back in the confines of WWE. And not for nothing, the back and forth segment that we had here between Becky and AJ Lee, it just fell flat on its ass, bro. It was lackluster. It really was. From both sides of the fence. It's not just AJ Lee. Becky Lynch as well. It just feels like it was lackluster. You know, we did also see Obafemi last night, which I'm not complaining about. We don't need to see Obafemi every single night. But I do want Obafemi in a decent storyline or a decent match. I don't want him to be coming out to Raw and SmackDown to pretty much squash town or come out and compete against jobbers. That match he had against Kit Wilson on SmackDown last week, bro, was absolutely brutal. I want him to have a solid competitor, solid challenger to step in the ring with, and not just jobbers. I don't give a shit if it's Gunther. I don't give a shit if it's Brock Lesnar. We need to have a suitable challenger and competitor to compete against the likes of Obafemi, in my honest opinion. So we didn't see Obafemi last night. We also saw Natty and Maxine Dupree, but it looks like Natty also has her sights set on AJ Lee as well. So I don't know how that's also going to play out moving forward. So, you know, and like I said, we also see CM Punk and Finn Balor. That match is announced. It will take place in Chicago, Illinois at Elimination Chamber, where CM Punk will once again defend the World Heavyweight title against Finn Balor at the Elimination Chamber. Like I said earlier, the question is, what does this do for Finn Balor? If Finn Balor goes in the Elimination Chamber and once again loses to CM Punk, what does it do for Finn Balor? That's the biggest question I have going into this matchup. If Finn does lose once again to CM Punk at Elimination Chamber, then what does this do for Finn Balor? We also saw LA Knight. LA Knight, he came back to WWE at the Royal Rumble. Obviously, he has his sights set on the Vision after what Bronson Reed and Logan Paul did to him, which ultimately put him on the shelf for a little while. So it looks like LA Knight has some unfinished business with the Vision. LA Knight was also successful last night in the Elimination Chamber qualifying match, where now he did qualify, and he will be moving on to the Elimination Chamber. I'm hoping they push LA Knight. I really do. And it's not me saying I'm an LA Knight super fan. LA Knight needs this push, bro, because at the end of the day, if LA Knight is not in a title situation, whether it's the World Heavyweight title or the Universal Championship, the WWE Championship, then what the hell are we doing with LA Knight? Honestly. And I feel as if I was LA Knight, which obviously I'm not, but if I was LA Knight and you don't get some kind of significant push or into a title picture, then at this point, bro, I would have to ask myself, what the hell am I doing here? Am I being utilized correctly here? Are they actually seeing the talent in me to be a top guy for this company, or do they not? Or I'm probably the best mid-card at best. You know what I mean? Like, that's a question I'm sure LA Knight's probably ran in his head back and forth, questioning whether or not he's a main event guy for Monday Night Raw, or if not, SmackDown. You know what I mean? Or just a main eventer in general. We saw the Usos also last night defend the World Tag Team titles. I gave my thoughts about this. Again, the tag team division on Monday Night Raw is lacking depth. There's not a lot of suitable challengers or competitors to compete with the Usos. And I'm not taking anything away from Otis and Tozawa. I think they did a fantastic job in last night's match. But it really does beg the question, is really what is next for the Usos? Are they going to drop the World Tag Team titles here soon, possibly to the Creeds or the New Day? Is Jey Uso going to have a qualifying match for Elimination Chamber, where he's kind of going back on his own again and trying to be once again main event Jey Uso? And again, if that's the case, then where does this leave Jimmy Uso if Jey Uso goes off and does his own thing? And honestly, for what it's worth, bro, I'm not blaming the Usos. I mean, that situation with tag teams and when they kind of do their own thing, usually the other person kind of gets left behind. And I've seen it countless times, bro. We can go back to tag teams all the way back in the day, bro. If we're looking at the Steiners from Scott and Rick, obviously it benefited Scott Steiner a hell of a lot more than it did Rick Steiner when they did separate and were no longer the Steiners. Harlem Heat, we can obviously tell it benefited the hell out of Booker T and not Stevie Ray. Hell, Doom, if you guys go back as far as wrestling as I do, the tag team with Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, clearly it benefited Ron Simmons more than it did Butch Reed, which I thought Doom was a great tag team back in the early WCW days. Obviously, it benefited Ron Simmons more than it did Butch Reed. A lot of tag teams that, it kind of just fell apart. It didn't really benefit them a whole hell of a lot. You can look at the British Bulldogs. Obviously, that little split up there, it benefited more for Davey Boy Smith than it did Dynamite Kid. So if the Usos kind of do their own thing, obviously it's going to benefit Jey Uso more because he's already had a singles run and became Intercontinental Champion and was a former World Heavyweight Champion, then it would benefit Jimmy Uso. So that's the $1 million question, bro, is where does it leave Jimmy Uso if Jey does go off and do his own thing once again and Jimmy is once again left behind to kind of seemingly play second fiddle? You know what I mean? That's the $1 million question. And certain tag teams, I mean, if they do separate, it doesn't benefit sometimes any one of them. You know, it does happen. Once in a rare blue moon, it does happen where people are like, you know what? They should have just stayed a tag team, bro. The reason they should have never split up and did their own thing. It just doesn't work. And it happens a lot. It happens across the board. I'm not saying that doesn't happen either, but, you know, like I said, when it pertains to the Usos, if Jey goes off and does his whole main event Jey Uso thing, then where does this really leave Jimmy? I know Jimmy is having a family with Naomi. Obviously, he's probably going to take some time off. So I don't think the title reign for the Usos being tag team champions is going to last a whole hell of a lot. I feel like it might come to an end here relatively soon, to be honest with you. I kind of see the writing on the wall for the Usos where Jey is going to go back and do the main event thing and Jimmy is going to be taking some time off or kind of playing second fiddle to what Jey is doing. So we'll see how it plays out. You know what I mean? I also forgot to mention the Hardys. You know, when they split up, it maybe benefited Jeff a little bit more than Matt, but at the end of the day, everybody wanted to see them as the Hardys. You know, the Dudleys. Nobody really cared about what Bully Ray or Devon were doing on a singles run. It was better when they were together. You know, and certain tag teams, when they split up, it does work. It's the same situation. Look at Edge and Christian. It benefited the shit out of Edge, where it really didn't benefit Christian a whole hell of a lot as far as him being a singles competitor in WWE. Now, when Edge was still in WWE and Christian went over to TNA, it completely revamped Christian's career when he was over in TNA. So it's kind of a give and take kind of deal, bro, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, man, Monday Night Raw, was it a great show? No, it just wasn't. And I'm not trying to sound like a broken record. It's just, SmackDown was just brutal to watch, bro. It was nauseating as all hell to watch. And Monday Night Raw, even though it wasn't as bad as SmackDown, it's not saying a whole lot either. I mean, Raw was all right. Rhea Ripley also qualified for the Women's Chamber match. She will be joining the likes of Tiffany Stratton as well. Again, it was kind of predictable on who was going to win that triple threat match to qualify between Rhea, Ivy Nile, and Lyra Valkyria. You know, sometimes you got to feed the hot hand, and right now it's Rhea Ripley. So, I mean, WWE is seemingly right now playing it safe. I think a lot of people are saying that same situation, that WWE is playing it safe, going into the Elimination Chamber and going into WrestleMania. And I wanted to talk about WrestleMania quickly before I get out of here. WrestleMania is running into issues, bro. There has been news and rumors coming out about this year's WrestleMania that seemingly are not good. Obviously, injuries are hindering WWE right now. Braun Breaker, him having required hernia surgery, and then Bianca Belair. Now, I made comments about Bianca Belair at my Rumble review and as well as SmackDown, especially pertaining to Jade Cargill. I don't know what's going on with Bianca Belair. There was news that came out about Bianca earlier today that it seems as if WWE really doesn't have a plan for Bianca at this point. They don't know really where to put Bianca Belair back into the fold on Friday Night SmackDown. That was one side of the news that I also heard about Bianca. The other side of Belair's news that I heard was that, how bad is this injury? Some people are saying that this injury is very bad. Some people are saying that she is healed up, but again, they don't really know what to do with Bianca Belair at the very moment. Now, again, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here. I'm not. But it is a little ironic how we have Montez Ford, Angelo Dawkins, seemingly healthy and ready to go, but we're not seeing them on SmackDown. It's been a while. We haven't seen them on SmackDown. But instead, they're doing NXT live tapings down in NXT in Orlando, Florida. So did Dawkins and Montez Ford possibly, I'm not saying this is true or not, did they get pushed back down to NXT? And does it somehow correlate with Bianca Belair? I'm just saying, it might be a conspiracy, it might be my own conspiracy. I'm just saying, there has been a lot of talks with Bianca Belair as of late on what the hell was going on with Bianca, how bad is her hand injury, and there was news that came out today that WWE seemingly doesn't really have a plan right now for Bianca Belair, and that's why she hasn't been seen on Friday Night SmackDown. I don't know why the hell not. If Bianca is ready and healthy and ready to go, then why did we not see Bianca Belair at the Royal Rumble? You don't have to have a plan for her creatively in the Royal Rumble. You return her at the Rumble. And then you build off that. So again, some people are saying that she is healthy and she's ready to return. But WWE doesn't have plans for her. And then the other side of the fence, people are saying that the hand injury is significantly bad. That we might not see her at WrestleMania. There might not be no plans for Bianca Belair at this year's WrestleMania, which is absolutely insane. The other thing I quickly want to talk about when it pertains to WrestleMania and on the fact that it's not looking good is that there was also news that, WWE is trying to pull a ruse, bro. They're trying to have people, instead of going to local restaurants or local bars to watch the WrestleMania event, it seems as if WWE is shutting down the fact of allowing bars to showcase WrestleMania at their bars, where they want more people that are going to these bars to actually purchase a ticket for WrestleMania instead of watching it at a local restaurant that might be showcasing WrestleMania this year, or a local bar in the Las Vegas area that might also be showing WrestleMania. WWE has seemingly blocked certain restaurants and certain bars to showcase WrestleMania in the Las Vegas area to these certain restaurants and bars, even though WrestleMania is going to be in Las Vegas. So their whole mindset is that rather than having these bars or restaurants showcase WrestleMania, they'd rather have these customers purchase a ticket to be at WrestleMania at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. I'm going to be honest, bro. The more shit is starting to come out for WWE as of late, they are all about the money, man. They're about the money. They don't give a shit about anything else but the money. And it's being shown in the product, man. The product it's starting to decline. Yes, we have Punk and Reigns. Great. But they're also playing it very, very safe. They just went to Saudi Arabia for the Royal Rumble, where I think combined they got $150 million, if not more. I could be wrong with that number, but it's up in the very, very high millions of dollars that they got from Saudi Arabia. They're all about the money, bro. And not only that, it's a slap in the goddamn face to people that are in the Las Vegas area that are going to these restaurants or these bars to watch your event, where WWE is blocking these restaurants, or if not these bars, showing WrestleMania. Because WWE rather have the people going to these restaurants or bars to actually show up at WrestleMania and spend $30,000 for a goddamn ticket to watch WrestleMania, bro. It's absolutely insane. WWE is not for the families, bro. They're just not. Where I'll give AEW 100% benefit on that, where they are for the families, because the tickets are actually affordable, bro. These prices for these WWE events, bro, it's a down payment for a goddamn house. We're talking $25,000, $30,000 to sit your ass down at a WrestleMania event or a pay-per-view to watch a pay-per-view that lasts seemingly 3 hours to 4 hours. $20,000 to $30,000 to purchase a WrestleMania ticket, bro. That's absolutely fucking insane. Insane. And honestly, them blocking those restaurants and bars, bro, it's a slap in the face to Las Vegas. I made comments about when they announced WrestleMania having this residency in Las Vegas, where it was a slap in the face to the fans of New Orleans that were pretty much promised a WrestleMania, and WWE swept it under the rug and took WrestleMania away from the fans over in New Orleans, which I think is complete and utter bullshit. WrestleMania shouldn't have a residency. You know what I mean? Or we're going to run it back in Las Vegas in the same goddamn, stadium that we ran the year prior. Come on, bro. The WrestleMania is the biggest wrestling show of the year. It is the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. That's like saying the Super Bowl is going to be in the same goddamn city every single year from here on out. Back-to-back years, we're going to the same goddamn stadium. Come on, bro. No. It's a spectacle, man. They'll have Super Bowls in Miami. They'll have Super Bowls in, I don't know, in Texas at Arlington Stadium. Or they'll have, at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Or they'll have it in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Or over in Indianapolis. Or wherever, bro. It's a spectacle for that city to have WrestleMania a part of their city for that weekend. It's a big-time deal. It makes the city a lot of revenue with WrestleMania being in that city. I don't think Las Vegas is hurting that bad for revenue, if I'm being brutally honest. You know what I mean? I think I don't know, man. WWE and Triple H and Nick Khan and the powers that be over at TKO, bro, they're just solely about the money. They're about the money, bro. They don't give a shit about anything else or what the fans think or storyline progression or getting fans invested in the product, because at the end of the day, they're looking to make money hand over fist, bro. That's it. At the end of the day, the whole Triple H regime that he's in right now, it's all about the mighty fucking dollar. That's it. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is the truth when it pertains to WWE. It is. And I think that seemingly is also AEW's benefit when they're not about the goddamn money. Fans and families, or even blue-collar families for that matter, anybody's family, I'm just using blue-collar family as an example, can afford to go to an AEW show, bro, and bring their family and bring their kids to these shows and not have to fork out $30,000 of their hard-ass working money to take their family to a wrestling event. But then on the flip side of that coin, you look at WWE, would seemingly, you got to, like I said, pretty much have a down payment for a house, $30,000, $40,000, to sit down for a WrestleMania event or any pay-per-view, bro. It's fucking insane. It's insane. Because not for nothing, I mean, bro, WWE makes enough money to lower the prices of these tickets, man. It's absolutely fucking insane. Where, like I said before, a blue-collar family, or any family for that matter, that has a big family, can't afford to bring their entire family to these wrestling events or like at WrestleMania. You know what I'm saying? They can't. I don't think anybody that could, for that matter. Honestly, if they're charging $30,000 for damn near a ticket, it's insane, bro. No normal family can afford that kind of shit. I'm gonna keep it a buck. They just can't. Where you could spend, rather than $30,000 for a WWE pay-per-view or PLE, you can go over to AEW, spend a couple $100, bring your family, have a good time, and there you go. So I will give AEW the benefit of the doubt on that shit. They're allowing fans at their show because the tickets are actually affordable for families to take their families or their kids to these wrestling events and have a good time as a family. Where with WWE, I mean, it's, bro, you gotta, shit, man. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. You know, I think WrestleMania this year is going to run into a lot of issues. We got injuries. We have issues with WWE and the Las Vegas areas when it pertains to restaurants and bars showcasing WrestleMania. They're going to be running into an issue, bro. WWE is all about the mighty fucking dollar. And that's really what it comes down to, bro. The Triple H regime with Hunter and Nick Khan and the powers that be at TKO, they only give a shit about the mighty dollar, bro. Hand over fist. They don't give a shit less about anything else. You think they genuinely give a shit about what the fans think? No. And people can say, oh, well, they gave a shit when R-Truth, was released and he came back. Yeah, what's R-Truth doing now, bro? See, honestly, what is he doing now? Not shit. Not shit. Not shit. And they knew at the end of the day that they made a huge mistake in letting R-Truth go. And the backlash they got from the fans. That was it. But as far as ticket prices for these events and shit, bro, it's astronomically insane. It is, man. I mean, it's absolutely insane. So I think hopefully we get some solid build going into this year's WrestleMania. Hopefully things do play out decent for Elimination Chamber coming up in the next week or two. I'm excited for the Elimination Chamber. It's one of my favorite events that WWE puts together, besides the Rumble and Survivor Series and SummerSlam, and obviously WrestleMania. But we'll see how it plays out, man. I do believe that WWE, though, as of late, are playing it very, very safe. And hopefully things do change. They shake some shit up and get more excitement going into Elimination Chamber, and especially going into this year's WrestleMania. But with that being said, though, this is my review of Monday Night Raw. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.